Behind its dazzling appearance, this fish carries 18 venomous spines filled with extremely dangerous toxins. In the Caribbean, the lionfish has no natural enemies, allowing it to reduce juvenile fish populations on a coral reef by up to 79% in only a few weeks. To stop this massive invasion, humans made a bold move, training sharks to become hunters of this invasive fish. The plan succeeded as lionfish numbers quickly declined, but when scientists returned in 2022, they realized a shocking truth: these sharks had stopped hunting naturally. They would rather ignore prey and follow divers, waiting to be fed like dependent pets. The lesson the sharks taught themselves turned out to bring a greater risk than the venomous fish we were trying to control. The lionfish looks more like a work of art than an ecological threat. With its bright stripes and wide fins spread out like a royal fan, it can easily deceive anyone who sees it for the first time. But behind that beauty are 18 venomous spines filled with dangerous toxins, 13 spines on the dorsal fin, 3 on the anal fin, and 2 on the pelvic fins. When facing an enemy, the lionfish does not run away. It turns its back, spreads its fins, and points its most venomous spines toward the opponent. A clear signal warning any predator that wants to approach. In the Caribbean Sea, where the lionfish does not belong, it has no natural enemies. Native predators such as groupers and sharks here had never seen anything so strangely shaped and covered in spines throughout millions of years of evolution. As a result, they completely ignored the lionfish. This indifference led to a terrifying number. One lionfish can wipe out up to 79% of small native fish on a coral reef in only 5 weeks. They consume anything that fits in their mouths, from snapper and young grouper to the cleaner fish that help coral reefs survive. The problem does not stop at the fact that they eat too much. Lionfish are creatures that reproduce at an astonishing speed. One female can lay up to 2 million eggs each year. With no enemies, endless food, and a dizzying reproductive rate, lionfish have turned clear blue waters into an exhausted ecosystem in only a few decades. But wait, because the horror is not only in the number of fish lost. Researchers discovered that lionfish even have superior adaptability. Once they have depleted the fish supply on a reef, their stomachs can expand up to 30 times their normal size to store food, or they can survive for months without eating, waiting for the next generation of juvenile fish to be born so they can keep hunting. When human hand capture methods proved far too slow compared with the lionfish's reproductive speed, a bold plan was proposed. Why not teach the native predators of the reef how to hunt this invasive species? In Cuba, specifically in Jardines de la Reina, a strictly protected marine reserve preserved almost untouched for 50 years, Dr. Fabian Pina Amargos took the first steps. The idea was very simple. Divers would spear lionfish, then give them to sharks and groupers to eat. The goal was to help them recognize that lionfish are a safe source of nutrition. At first, everything was extremely difficult. Large Nassau groupers often backed away suspiciously. Caribbean reef sharks circled around, showing no desire to touch the pile of venomous spines. But when humans began cutting off the venomous spines and offering the food directly, their hunting instincts were awakened. After a period of time, the data showed that lionfish numbers in this area dropped by as much as 150% compared with the average in the rest of the Caribbean. The sharks began hunting lionfish on their own. They learned an extremely refined technique, attacking only from the head to avoid being stabbed in the mouth by the spines on the back and tail. But this was exactly when the dark side of the problem appeared. This success created a side effect that no one had predicted. We did not just teach them how to eat lionfish, we accidentally changed their natural behavior. 6 years after the experiment in Belize, the behavioral change among large fish species had reached an alarming level. Footage from 2016 showed that groupers and sharks usually stayed away from divers. They were cautious and kept a safe distance. But by 2022, everything had turned upside down. Groupers no longer searched for food in rock crevices. Instead, they waited at diving sites. As soon as they saw a diver holding a spear, the grouper would swim close, sometimes only a few centimeters from the diver's mask. It was not only following, it was actively demanding food. There have been astonishing reports of groupers swimming in front of divers, then pointing their heads toward a narrow rock crevice to show the diver that a lionfish was hiding there. It was signaling, "Hunt this fish for me." This is a high-level form of conditioned behavior. Sharks and groupers had linked the image of the spear and the sound of diving equipment with an easy meal. Instead of wasting energy chasing fast-moving fish, they chose to depend on humans. The real danger lies here when divers have no lionfish to give. These animals begin to lose patience. At dive sites in Belize and Grand Cayman, reef sharks began circling divers at increasingly close distances. There have been cases where sharks rushed in to fight over a fish the moment it left the spear, sometimes crashing hard into a diver's hand or equipment. Even smaller species such as needlefish became unusually aggressive. They were willing to attack divers' fins or hands if food was not provided in time. We had turned proud predators into unstable, easily triggered creatures. Human intervention in the food chain is nothing new, and history always ends with a painful warning. Look at the cane toad disaster in Australia. In 1935, cane toads were imported to control beetles that were destroying sugarcane. The result? The cane toads did not eat the beetles. They consumed almost everything else, and because they were poisonous, they caused serious declines among millions of native predators, such as Tasmanian devils and crocodiles. Or take the story of mongooses in Hawaii. They were brought in to control rats on plantations. But people forgot one small detail: rats are active at night, while mongooses are active during the day. As a result, they never met each other, and the mongooses turned to eating the eggs of rare bird species that were already at risk of disappearing. Returning to the lionfish. Teaching sharks to eat this species is creating a similar consequence. When sharks lose their natural fear of humans, the boundary between a diver and a food source becomes fragile. Why is this more dangerous than lionfish venom? Because sharks have very good memory. Once one generation of sharks learns that humans are a food provider, they can pass that behavior to others through observation. And do not forget, lionfish are not only in the Caribbean. Today, they have crossed the Suez Canal and entered the Mediterranean Sea. In Turkey, Greece, and Cyprus, lionfish numbers are rising sharply. If divers there also begin training native sharks in this way, we may soon face a global underwater safety crisis. There is one truth that few people know: what we see on shallow coral reefs is only the tip of the iceberg. The latest submarine studies have discovered lionfish at depths of more than 100 meters, even 300 meters below sea level. At these depths, no diver can reach them to hunt them. And sharks appear less often. This is a safe zone where lionfish can continue multiplying. We can remove thousands of individuals from shallow waters, but individuals from the deep will constantly rise up to fill the empty space. A study in Florida even discovered a more shocking truth: lionfish are beginning to consume their own kind when other food sources run out. This is not a sign that they will collapse on their own, but a sign of a creature with extreme adaptability. They will survive at any cost. Why can they survive at that depth? DNA analysis of lionfish in the Caribbean shows that they have extremely low genetic diversity. They all originated from a small group of about 10 to 12 individuals that escaped from aquariums in Florida during the 1980s. However, this genetic limitation has not stopped them. They have evolved to withstand high water pressure and low temperatures, conditions that would paralyze most other coral fish species. A National Geographic expedition in 2024 used remotely operated robots to observe lionfish at a depth of 150 meters off the coast of Bermuda. They discovered that lionfish there were 30% larger than their shallow water relatives. This means we are facing populations that are silently occupying water layers humans can never reach. Every surface-level hunting effort is almost meaningless compared with the true scale of the problem. So why do we keep going? The answer lies in economics. A living shark in Belize brings in about $1.2 million in tourism value over its lifetime. By contrast, a dead shark is worth only a few $100s for its meat and fins. The fact that sharks have become less cautious and easier to approach has accidentally turned them into a magnet for tourists. Divers are now almost guaranteed to see sharks at close range without needing bait, which is banned in many places. But the price is the emergence of underwater security staff. These are professional dive guides, who must carry long sticks to push sharks away, preventing them from rushing at guests to fight for food. We have created an entertainment industry based on changing the instincts of the ocean's fiercest predators. In countries such as the Bahamas, the tourism industry contributes up to $114 million each year to the national GDP. This economic dependence makes it very difficult for governments to issue bans on feeding or training sharks. They are trapped between preserving the original ecosystem and maintaining the income source that supports thousands of families. This economic benefit is creating a direct conflict with the core principles of ecological conservation. But what is the risk when this model fails? A serious incident in 2022 at a famous dive site proved this point. A bull shark, already used to receiving lionfish from divers, attacked the thigh of a tourist as soon as that person entered the water. The investigation showed that the shark was not intentionally attacking a human. It was simply performing a test bite to check whether the person was carrying food. In nature, even a small intervention in behavior can lead to unpredictable safety risks. The war against lionfish is still not over. We tried to use nature to fix our own mistake, but perhaps we accidentally created a new problem that is even harder to control. Ecosystems always operate according to complex rules, and direct human interventions often produce the opposite effect. We once believed we could adjust one link in the food chain to control the outbreak of an alien species. However, the real outcome weakened the independent instincts of the native species themselves. Sharks no longer see the ocean in the same way. The sounds from diving equipment and hunting tools are now recognized by them as signals of a food supply. When you step into the Caribbean waters today, you are no longer just an observer. In the eyes of the top predators, you have become part of the food chain, not as prey, but as an indispensable food provider. The question is no longer how to control the number of lionfish. The real challenge now is this: how will the ecological structure change if one day humans stop providing food for creatures that have lost their natural hunting skills? That will be the moment when the consequences of altering the laws of nature become clearest. What do you think about this ecological intervention method? Is controlling an alien species worth trading away the natural behavior of native species? Leave your opinion in the comment section. And do not forget to subscribe to continue following in-depth scientific analyses of the ocean world in the next videos.